Real life. Bismillah.
Thank you. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي أشتد به أزري وأشركه في أمري. Continuing with Surah Taha, we reached verses 27 onwards. The last verse that we covered was verse 26 that said وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي. And we had a lot to talk about in regards to that verse and how we have to be after the wisest decision all the time, the wisest course of action. Sometimes that wisest course of action will be easy, the easier option. Sometimes it'll be the harder option. In the end, we have to choose what's wiser. Ali ibn Abi Talib, after Saqifa, he chose the physically easier option, which was to not cause a stir, not cause problems. And after he exhibited his dissatisfaction, Fatima Zahra showed that she's not happy with what's going on. He eventually got along with whatever was going on because he didn't want to cause problems, as he says himself in other khutbahs of Nahj al-Balagha. That might be physically easier to do, to not resist. Imam Hussein, on the other hand, he had to choose the harder option, but it was also the wiser option. Yes, so these two sometimes will be separate from each other, and sometimes no, they will be the same. They will coincide. And so, what's important is to be after the wisest decision. Now, that doesn't mean we can't do dua for Allah to make things easy for us, and this is what Prophet Musa was doing. وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي. Oh Allah, make my job easy, my responsibility easy on me. So if you remember, we were speaking about the different du'as Prophet Musa made to Allah once this responsibility was put on his shoulders. First of all, he didn't question anything. He didn't ask for a discount. What he did ask for were other things to help him in this mission, to carry out this responsibility. The first ones were قَالَ رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي يَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي. These are the ones that we covered before. His du'as go on now. MashaAllah, Prophet Musa had a lot of du'as here. Allah gave a responsibility, and so he's doing du'a. And that shows that even for the wajib and haram that we have every day, that we have on our shoulders every day, it's a good thing to ask Allah for help and for tawfiq to live up to those responsibilities, right? Allahumma arzuqna tawfiq al-ta'a wa bu'd al-ma'siyah. In this dua of the Imam, of the 12th Imam even, that we recite on the nights of Qadr and other times as well, you're asking, oh Allah, give me tawfiq al-ta'a, help me to obey you. Yes, and so there's nothing wrong with asking Allah for help to obey. I don't understand how some people get this feeling that, it's if there's a responsibility and no matter how hard it is, you have to go and figure it out on your own. Yes? No. You can ask Allah for help. Oh Allah, help me in this. Whether it's the wajib and harams of Allah, all the way to fighting Fir'aun in the story of Musa. Anyway, the third thing that he asks for, after Sharh al-Sadr and after Taysir al-Amr, is وَحْلُ الْعُقْدَةً مِنْ لِسَانِي. He says, oh Allah, remove the knot. Uqda means knot. Like when we say aqd in Arabic, for example, we have different types of aqds, different types of deals and transactions in Islamic fiqh. We have aqd al-nikah, for example. We have aqd al-bay'. Aqd means knot. Yes? And the reason why this word is used as well for transactions and deals that people make with each other is because a knot has two ends to it. It comes together These the string rope, whatever it is, comes together and it ties into a knot, right? So when you have an aqd, it's as if you are tying a knot between two or more parties. Okay, so here uqda also means knot. He says, look, oh Allah, my tongue has a knot. I need you to open that knot for me. Wahlul uqdatan min lisani, remove this knot from my tongue. Now here, Mufassirin have said different things. I want to talk about that a little bit. Some say that Prophet Musa was asking Allah to help him and fix a problem that he had with his tongue physically, a physical problem with his tongue. He had a speech impediment, they say, and he would stutter in his speech. This is very famous. A lot of people have heard this and talk about it. So they say that Prophet Musa, here when he says, وَحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي, oh Allah, remove the knot from my tongue. It means get rid of that impediment that I have, that I suffer from. And so that people, can understand me better. But there are other mufassirin, and I'm going to say this is the majority of the ones that are, the important ones, the more important mufassirin. They say that no, it's not the Prophet of God asking that this speech impediment be removed and that he doesn't stutter in his speech anymore. No, that's not what he's asking for. He's asking for Allah to help him in his speech to deliver the message properly and nicely and eloquently to the people. Yes, people are of different types. Some people, when they speak, others understand them better than others who speak. We have this in school. We have this when it comes to lectures and it comes to the speeches in the mosque, in the centers, and all of that. We have this everywhere. Some are going to be more famous than others. Some are going to be, yes, they're going to be such that people are excited to go and sit in their lectures. Others aren't as excited to go. Why? One of the reasons is because when a lecturer speaks, when a teacher teaches, yes, they can sometimes be good at delivering that message they want to deliver. Sometimes no, they're not that good at delivering that message. These play a role in people looking up to them, trying to go and sit in their presence and benefit from them. So here, Prophet Musa, he says, the Mufassirin are saying that he says, oh Allah, help me such that I can speak in a way that people are touched, people get what I'm saying. This is what some Mufassirin say. So which one is it now? That's the question. Is it Prophet Musa asking for Allah to cure his problem that he has on his tongue, the physical problem that he has, or no? Is it just the Prophet of God, this Prophet of God, asking for Allah to help him in him getting the message across to the people? Which one of these two is it? Mufassirin is saying it's the second one. Why? Because of two reasons that are in these verses and other verses. Yeah? One of those is the ensuing verse. وَحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي. The Prophet, he says, oh Allah, remove that knot so that they يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي. Yafqahu doesn't necessarily mean just to understand what's being said. Yes, it means to really get what's being said, to get to the core of someone's speech, to know exactly what they're trying to get at. So it has more to do with not registering the words that are being said, making out the words that are being said, but rather it has to do with understanding the ma'na, the core, yeah, of what someone is telling you. Sometimes you understand word for word what someone is telling you, yeah? You know the definition of every term when that person is speaking, but you just don't get exactly what they're trying to get at. Yeah? Here, the word yafqahu has been used. Yafqahu means to get to the deep meaning of something. A faqih is called a faqih because of their deep understanding of the religion. Not just the understanding, but a deep understanding of the religion, a thorough understanding of the religion. If Prophet Musa alayhi salam, what he's telling people is going to make sense to them, what he's telling people they're going to be touched by what he's telling them. This has to come from Allah. Yes, they have to be faqihs of what Prophet Musa is saying, which means to understand exactly what he's trying to get at. So it seems that Prophet Musa has identified a problem, and that is that he might not be the best when it comes to speaking and eloquence. And so this is what he's asking Allah for. And these first 3-4 lines, or first three or four du'as, are ones that even lecturers sometimes are reciting when they begin their lecture. When they begin their lecture, if you've noticed, some lecturers, this is what they ask Allah for. They say, رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي وَاحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي. They ask Allah, yes, they ask Allah that Allah blesses them with some eloquence, yes, and the power to speak properly so that the people understand what they're trying to say. That this doesn't mean that every person now who's doing this dua before their lecture, that they're asking Allah to remove a speech impediment that they have. No. It means that, oh Allah, I want the people to get what I'm trying to get at. So help me in that. Yeah? Make my speech strong enough, powerful enough, eloquent enough that it hits the target, hits the bullseye. Yeah. So personally, I feel like, yeah, this is what the dua is all about. It's all about the second interpretation, not about the speech impediment that Prophet Musa has. Although for some it seems like this is the cooler tafsir, of this verse. That yeah, Prophet Musa he would stutter in his speech, and so he's asking Allah to remove that for him. Yeah, I personally don't agree with that one. Very humbly, I say that. And I just feel that, not that he didn't have that speech impediment, God knows, and we do have verses, or excuse me, we might have hadith for that as well. But in this dua here, in this verse, it seems like he's asking Allah for something else. He's asking Allah to help him get the message across. Yafqahu qawli. Yes, if you remove this uqdah from my lisan, from my tongue, such that I can speak and get the message across, yafqahu qawli. The people will understand what I'm trying to get at. Prophet Musa says here in verse number 28. Yafqahu qawli. And so this is what he is about. This is what he's all about, Prophet Musa. Prophet Musa wants the people to understand what he's saying. He doesn't want the fame. He doesn't want the wealth. He doesn't want anything like that. The only thing he's after is for the people to get the message, so that the hujjah is finished on them. There's no more excuses. There are no more excuses for the people turning away from Allah's message. And so that through that, the Prophet Musa has secured for himself the satisfaction of Allah because he did his responsibility. Yafqahu qawli. If we can make sure that they understand what's being said, our job is done. Okay. But is that all Prophet Musa asked for? No. He asks for more now. وَاجْعَلْ لِي وَزِيرًا مِنْ أَهْلِي. Oh, excuse me. I skipped one more reason why the Mufassirin say that when Prophet Musa asks for the knot to be removed from his tongue, what he means is not to get rid of the stutter that he has, but rather that he is able to get the message across. One verse was the ensuing verse, yafqahu. The word yafqahu shows that he's asking for Allah for them to understand everything that he's talking about. One. Second reason, which I skipped, was another verse in the Quran uses wording that shows what Prophet Musa was after when he's asking about something being removed from his tongue, a problem being resolved regarding his tongue. That is Surah Qasas, verse 34. If we're in Surah Taha, 14 surahs later, Surah Qasas, verse 34, there's a verse in there that we can use to understand what Prophet Musa meant by the problem his tongue has. Over there it says, وَأَخِي هَارُونَ هُوَ أَفْصَحُ مِنِّي لِسَانًا. When it comes to the tongue, you see lisan is the same word used in this verse. In Surah Taha it said وَحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِنْ لِسَانِي. Here it says أَفْصَحُ مِنِّي لِسَانًا. Same word. So we can tell that, okay, he's talking about the same thing here. He says, I need my brother Harun, huwa afsahu minni. Afsah comes from fasih, comes from fasaha, which means to be eloquent, to speak nicely, to speak and get to the point, to speak to the point of things. And so here, Prophet Musa is clearly saying what he means by the tongue and the problem he might have in the tongue. He says, when it comes to the tongue, in other words, my speech, Prophet Harun is more fasih than I am. He's more eloquent than I am. He is better at getting the message across than I am. Now, someone might ask, well, if Prophet Harun is better at speaking, then why is he not the primary messenger of God? And why was Musa chosen? Wow, good question. This is a good question, brothers and sisters. The answer I would say is this, that when it comes to being a prophet of God, it's not just who is the better orator, who the better speaker is. There are more qualifications than just good speech. There are many more qualifications. And so when Allah wants to choose a prophet, that's not the first thing that He will look at. That how eloquent does this person speak? I mean, eloquence, others have had it throughout history too. Ziyad ibn Abi, the one who was on the side of Amir al-Mu'mineen for the longest of times, but then switched sides to Muawiyah later, they say Ziyad was a very nice speaker, whose son was Ubaidullah bin Ziyad, that tyrant of Karbala. Ziyad bin Abi, they say he was very good at speaking, and that's why at a young age, he got the attention of very important people, like the second Khalifa. Yes? So here, that's not the first thing that God will look at when choosing a prophet. There are other qualifications first when it comes to choosing a prophet. Is it how good they look? No. Is it how fair-skinned they are? No. Some of our imams explicitly, the sources say that they were dark, they had dark complexions. Yeah? These types of things don't matter. Yes, that person should be able to speak something, but is he going to be the most eloquent amongst his people? Not necessarily. Prophet Musa is an example of that. Harun was a pious individual too, but Prophet Musa was chosen. Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalata. Allah knows better where to put his risala, where to put prophethood. He knows Musa alayhi salam is more befitting of this rank, he gives it to him. But Harun speaks better, so what? He can help Musa alayhi salam, but he's not going to be the main prophet. He's not going to be the prophet that is of the ulul azm. And this, brothers and sisters, kind of can be applied today as well to us speakers. Yeah? Some of us are more eloquent than others. Does that mean that necessarily just because I'm more eloquent than he is, that I'm the one to be followed? Not necessarily. Yes, that is a God-given gift to be a good orator, to speak nicely and all of that, but it's not everything. It's not every qualification for people to follow me necessarily just because I know how to speak better or my delivery skills are better. There are other qualifications as well. Okay, now having said that, let's go to verse 29. وَاجْعَلْ لِي وَزِيرًا مِنْ أَهْلِي. The next dua that Musa alayhi salam has is, I need a wazir, a vizier to help me in everything I do. True, in Surah Qasas, verse 34. Yeah, excuse me, I made a mistake when I said Qasas 14 surahs later. The verse was 34. I mistakenly thought the surah number is 34. True, in Qasas 34, there he says, I need help from Harun because he's more eloquent than I am. But that doesn't mean that was the only reason Musa alayhi salam is asking for Harun to be his aid and his wazir, his helper. Here he says, وَاجْعَلْ لِي وَزِيرًا مِنْ أَهْلِي. Oh Allah, I need a wazir also from my family, from my bloodline. Yes? What does wazir mean? Wazir derives from the root wizr. In the Quran, we have a verse that says, وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى, that no person that's carrying burden shall carry the burden of others. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. This word has been used 3 times in this verse, the root. 3 times it's been used. Wazir also comes from the same root. Wizr, burden, weight, a weight. Now here, when it says waziran min ahli, it means a person that will carry the wizr along with me, will carry the burden along with me. That shows it's not just about eloquence. I need a helper. Musa alayhi salam is telling Allah or asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not just anyone to help me. It has to be someone that I can put all of my trust in. A person that I know will not turn his back on me. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, who was his most loyal companion? His brother, Abu al-Fadl Abbas. Yes? I don't like to say it like that, of course. The others also were very high in their loyalty. But at the end of the day, we know Abu al-Fadl Abbas had a special relationship. Yes? Ali al-Akbar had special relationship. Brother, son, and these types of people usually are the best ones you can lean on in a mission that you have or in a responsibility you want to carry out. Right? So, min ahli. And this is something that Amir al-Mu'mineen points to in Nahj al-Balagha as well. The fact that, look, you cannot neglect your ahl, your family, your blood relatives, your itra. Yes, to every rule there are exceptions. There are some people who will have relatives who are the worst of the worst. That's understandable. There are exceptions to this rule, but many a time it is your blood relatives and those close blood relatives that you can really rely on, that you know won't undermine you or stab you in the back. So Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahj al-Balagha, Sermon 23, he talks about this a little bit. He makes some important points. He says, O people, surely no one, even though they may be rich and wealthy, can do without his itra, without his family, his relatives, his blood relatives. No one can do without his itra and their support by hand or tongue. Sometimes people support you physically, sometimes people support you verbally. Yeah, there will be rumors spreading about you. Yeah, and your people, your clan, your tribe, your relatives are the ones who can explain things to people. You can't be in 100 places at once when people are talking. Who are the ones that you can rely on the most? Your relatives who are amongst the people, yeah, to at least verbally support you. So here Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, and their support by hand or tongue. They alone are his support from the back, from the front, and can ward off from him his troubles. They have his back, so to speak. Yeah, they alone are his support from the rear, from his back, and can ward off from him his troubles, the problems that are coming his way. They have his back. And they are the most kind to him when tribulations befall him. They feel the most sorry for you and sympathize the most with you when you're in hard times. So the Amir al-Mu'minin is saying, look, you might be well off, but that doesn't mean you're not in need of your kinsmen, of your relatives. Behold, if any one of you finds your near ones in need or starvation, they should not desist from helping them with that which will not increase if this help is not extended, nor decrease by thus spending it. He makes an important point here, Amir al-Mu'minin. He says, sometimes you see your relatives, they're in need. Now you can help them, but you're going to tell yourself, if I help them, if I give them this much, then I've lost some wealth. Let me keep it to myself. He says, look, there's some wealth that if you keep it, it's not going to add to your wealth, actually. And if you give it away, it's not going to decrease from your wealth. Yes, when you look at it on paper, when you look at numbers, the numbers have decreased. But if you look at it in its entirety, if you look at the entire picture, Allah works in mysterious ways. He doesn't go with the numbers the way we go by the numbers. Yes, if we go by numbers, we say, okay, I just lost this much to help my starving relative. Amir al-Mu'minin says, if you had not, don't think that you saved something. That much had to go. So here he says, don't let that hold you back from helping. Whoever holds back his hand from helping his itra, what is he holding back? One hand. We only have one hand to give, right? Or two hands to give, right? If we're holding our hand back, how many hands are we holding? One or two, right? But what happens is, at the time of his need, many hands remain held up from helping him. Amir al-Mu'minin says, you can help. He's talking to the ones who are wealthier, the ones who are richer. He's saying, look, you have needy relatives, and you hold your hand back. You don't help them out. That's one hand you held away from them. But when the time comes, they're going to have many hands to help you, but they're going to hold back. All of them are going to hold back, and that's many hands. One hand for many hands is worth it, he's saying. Don't make that mistake. Yes, and he ends with this. One who is sweet-tempered can retain the love of his people for good, of his itra for good. Have good akhlaq with your ahl, with your itra. Anyway, this is not something to neglect. And Prophet Musa ﷺ knows this. I can rely the most on Harun. Waj'al li, O Allah, waziran min ahli. Give me a wazir from my ahl. Who? Haruna. Give me Harun. Akhi. He's my brother. Yes? So Prophet Harun ﷺ was the brother of Prophet Musa. And something that some are not aware of is that Harun ﷺ, although Musa was the primary prophet of his time, and he was the Ulul Azm prophet, Harun was older than him. According to the traditions, Harun is older than Musa by 3 years. Now, we all know that Prophet Musa was miraculously saved by Fir'aun. And we all know Fir'aun was slaughtering the male children of Bani Israel. Right? But what we don't know is this, sometimes we don't know, is that it's not, according once again to history and tradition, that Fir'aun, it's not like he was killing every male for the longest period of time. Male child, male infant, male newborn. What he was doing was, they say he was, for 1 year he would slaughter all the male newborns, and then another year he would leave them alone. And then another year he would slaughter the male children. Why that's the case? One can guess that Fir'aun understood that if he's going to slaughter all the male children, that this is going to hurt everything. It's going to hurt the empire in the future. When you don't have any males, all you have is females in your country, in your state, in your jurisdiction, then this is going to be a problem. You have to have both genders. Same thing if you get rid of all the females and there's only males. Yes, every one of us, every gender plays its role in society and raising society up to where it's supposed to be. Fir'aun understand this, that even from a worldly perspective, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you get rid of all the male children all the time. And so they tell us that in these tafsir books that are, getting it from history books and maybe hadiths, they tell us that Fir'aun would slaughter for a year, and then for 1 year he would relax that, and then 1 year again he would slaughter. So Harun his birth fell in that year, that in one of those years that Fir'aun was not slaughtering the male infants. But Musa alayhi salam, that's 3 years before Musa was born. When Musa was born, he was born in the year that they were slaughtering the male infants. But of course, we all know the story, and we're going to get to it in a little bit in Surah Taha as well. Prophet Musa was exceptionally and miraculously saved. Yes, and as a result, he didn't die in that year where all the other male infants were dying. Haruna akhi, Harun, I want him to be my wazir, and he's my brother. How much more? What more could you ask for? And through him, O Allah, ushdud bihi azri, tighten my belt, tighten my back, something like that. When you secure your back, when you tighten your belt, that means you're getting ready to work hard, right? Help him to be my support, in other words. Ushdud bihi azri, in other words, means to help him be my main support. Ashrikhu fi amri, you gave me a responsibility, O Allah. You gave me a responsibility. I want him to be my partner in fulfilling this responsibility. Ashrikhu fi amri, make him a partner of mine in this responsibility you've given. If you do that, O Allah, and he is my help, then we will be able to do something. كَيْ نُسَبِّحَكَ كَثِيرًا وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا, so that we may do tasbih of you and glorify you abundantly and a lot. Kathira. What is meant here? And the next verse also, وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا, and we remember you often and a lot. What is going on? Prophet Musa is asking for support, help. He's more eloquent than me, and so on and so forth. Help me in all of this so that I can do your dhikr and tasbih. Is that what's going on? What's going on? Allama Tabatabai and maybe others, they've said, look, in Arabic, when we say kay means so. It means as a result. Here in these verses, when the Prophet Musa says, "Oh Allah, give me Harun as my aid," so as a result, we do your tasbih a lot, and we remember you a lot. Since this is the result of that, Allama Tabatabai, he says that it becomes clear that this tasbih and glorification of God is a public one among the people. Not a private and discreet one like we do after Salat, we do tasbih of Allah after Salat, tasbih al-Zahra alayha salam, for example. No. So that we may glorify you amongst the masses. And this falls in place in this context that we're in. Oh Allah, I need help. First of all, give me sharh al-sadr, open up my chest, give me patience, remove the knot from my tongue, give me Harun as a helper. All of this so that we can make your glorification public. People think Fir'aun is the Lord. We will teach them otherwise. How? Through us glorifying you. So if you do all of this for me, O Allah, inshallah, I'll be able to glorify you. And in other words, carry out the responsibility of doing what I need to do in the presence of Fir'aun and the people. Number one, tasbih, glorification. Number two, so that we may remember you a lot as well. What does this mean? Same thing. Dhikr, we sometimes do dhikr in the privacy of our room, of our musalla, wherever it is. But here, remembrance also means to remember God in the public as part of that responsibility that Musa and Harun alayhim as-salam had. Yes? So here, Allama Tabatabai does this nice tafsir. He gives this nice tafsiri point that the fact that it's basing this on the previous verses shows there's a link between them. Shows that the context of the preceding verses is what's going to dictate what these two mean, what tasbih means and what dhikr means here. So Prophet Musa is not asking for Allah to help him in all of this so that I can say your dhikr more at home, or I can do tasbih of you more at home. No. What is meant is, so I can do tasbih and dhikr which are part of the job that you've given us, which means it was the public dhikr and public tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Innaka kunta bina basira. Oh Allah, you are well aware of and seeing what we're all about. You know what me and Harun are all about. You know our relationship together. You know how we can supplement each other. If he's made my helper, you know better than us what we can accomplish. Now here, you see, Prophet Musa, he is observing the etiquettes of dua. He's not saying, oh Allah, you have to do this or else I won't be able to and all that. He says, look, oh Allah, you know better. I'm just saying these are the things that might happen if Harun is added to the roster. But at the end of the day, إِنَّكَ كُنْتَ بِنَا بَصِيرًا. You know better. This is an etiquette of dua. Prophet Yaqub did the same thing with his sons. When he told his sons to enter from different doors of Misr and Egypt, there was a reason for that. He was trying to avoid certain problems that might come up if all of these strong men enter from one door, which were his sons, of course. So he says, look, I want you guys to, enter from different doors, just so that you can make sure to avoid any extra problems and unnecessary problems. But and then he says, if Allah wants something else, that's going to happen. This is perspective, brothers and sisters. It's perspective. How we're supposed to look at things. We try our best, we do dua, but then we say, oh Allah, if you have something else in store, or if you know better, then you're the boss. إنك كنت بنا بصيرا قال قد أوتيت سؤلك يا موسى. In this intimate conversation, let's call it, between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Prophet Musa alayhi salam, Allah answers what Musa, after all that Musa has said, and after all that Musa alayhi salam has done dua for and asked for, Allah answers now. Qala, who said? Allah said, Qala qad utita su'laka ya Musa. That which you are asking for, we have granted. No problem. It was a hard job that they gave Prophet Musa. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's as if God cut him some slack here and gave him what he needed. Yes, Allah will help and go out of his way, so to speak, as much as is necessary, brothers and sisters. We have to understand this. If he gives us a taklif, if he gives us hardship, he's going to only expect the amount that we're able to do, not more. If he's going to give us a taklif, he's going to let us know what that taklif is, either through our aql, either through a prophet that he sends. And that's why the Quran says, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We don't punish a people unless we let them know what they have to do. So we do our part. We let them know. We give them a fitrah that makes them inclined towards doing good. We send them prophets. We give them intellect. We do everything we can. But in the end, though, you have to take the steps yourself. The free will you have to use to take the right steps in the right direction. Yes? Here also, Musa alayhi salam says, oh Allah, these are my wishes. Allah says, okay, I'll give you all of them, no problem. We will give you everything you've asked for. Here someone might say, well, look, but God is doing the job for Musa. No, Allah will help as much as needed, but in the end, who has to take the main steps? Us, we have to. Musa alayhi salam has to. And that's exactly what happens. The whole struggle begins. Musa alayhi salam, this is just the beginning of a lot of hardship to come his way and towards Harun and the people of Bani Israel. Oh my God, the story of Musa just begins. You have a lot that is going to come towards them later. So many details, so many interesting things that happen in the story of Musa alayhi salam. Okay, so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers Musa and says, قَالَ قَدْ أُوتِيتَ سُؤْلَكَ. You've been given, you've been granted your wishes, O Musa. But let us tell you something. If we are favoring you now and giving you that which will help you, know that this is not the first time. وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَيْكَ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى. There are other times as well that we favored you, O Musa. Verse 37 says, we favored you and put a favor upon you another time as well. And from here on, there is a flashback. From this point where Prophet Musa is in the Mount of Tur speaking to Allah, there's a flashback. Yes, a flashback to the time when Prophet Musa was born and how Allah saved him there. In other words, it seems that Allah wants to make clear to Musa that from day one, we have been taking care of you. We've been favoring you for this mission and responsibility you're going to have. If today Allah is speaking to you, O Musa, don't think that the favor has started now. We favored you in the beginning. Yes? and many times after that. But there was a time that we favored you, and that is when you were born. From day one, we've been favoring you. And so this is reminded to Musa as well, maybe to let him know that if there's a big responsibility on your shoulders, it's because you are a special individual. In the following verses, Allah makes it clear that He's special. Several times, at least twice, Allah says that I have been watching over you, I've been taking care of you, I've been molding you the way I like. Right? In other words, Musa, this is a big responsibility, but you're a big individual as well. And as I said before, brothers and sisters, Allah chooses those prophets as prophets not just because they speak eloquently, but because they are great individuals that Allah has prepared for a great responsibility. What this flashback is all about, inshallah, and the details and the intricacies of those verses, inshallah, we will have in our following and next session. We end here on verse number 37. وَلَقَدْ مَنَنَّا عَلَيْكَ مَرَّةً أُخْرَى وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And we don't have any questions either. Salam alaikum to everyone who has been watching and tuning in. And thank you, sisters who are saying these kind words. Thank you so much, and may Allah bless everyone. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.